Oh, darling, where have you been?
It's lovely to see you too.
Don't avoid the question, darling.
Which question?
You know which question?
Oh, right. Yes. I've been busy.
Busy?
Yes, busy.
With
stuff.
Stuff?
Yes, busy with stuff. Life stuff. The stuff of life.
I see. And whilst you were off being so busy with stuff, I don't suppose you gave one thought to all of that furniture out there waiting for you in the workshop.
Well, sure, of course.
Because I can tell you it felt rather neglected.
It did?
And I was the only one here for it.
You mean that you?
Yes.
You made over a piece of furniture? Wow! Where is it? Show me. I'd love to see it.
No, darling. No, I don't do the furniture.
No?
No.
Oh.
What I meant was that I was there for it. I kept it company. I kept spirits up. I kept morale high.
You kept up the furniture's morale.
Yes, darling.
How exactly does one...
I read to it. Poetry, mostly. I played my violin.
Now all the emails from the neighbors make sense.
I sang to it.
Oh boy.
I found that Whitney Houston was most effective.
Whitney Houston?
And I will always love you.
Wow.
I will always love you. I will always love you.
Boy.
Oh, darling, you know, many people have compared Miss Houston's voice to my own.
I don't think that they have.
Oh, by the way, there is a bit of a mouse problem in the workshop.
Mouse problem?
Yes, they seemed particularly drawn to the poetry reads. So many of them are little beatniks, you know.
The mice are beatniks?
And of course, a large congregation of beatnik mice will attract snakes.
There are snakes in the workshop?
Oh, don't be alarmed, darling. It's only a dozen or so. And I'm sure they're non-poisonous gopher snakes, although this is California, so there could be a rattler among them, I suppose. Just look carefully around where you step and walk, darling.
Okay.
Also, you may have a new junk demon as well.
Another junk demon?
Oh, darling, you know as well as I that they don't become really aggressive until spooky season, and this is May currently, so I'm sure you're not in any immediate danger.
Okay.
Just don't turn your back on the furniture pile for too long.
Right.
Oh, darling, it's so lovely to have you back. Now, off you go. Your furniture will be so happy to see you, darling.
Well, hey, would you like to come give me a hand?
Oh, darling, that's so thoughtful. I'd love to. I'm just so busy.
Busy with what?
With stuff. Ah. Toodles, darling. Everything is back as it should be. And I will always love you, my darling, you. I should do a Whitney Houston cover album. I'm sure that would sell. Cheers to that.
Hi everyone, I'm Andy. Welcome to Furniture Fables. Taking an unanticipated break. Furniture fabling, just like anything else, can of course be temporarily derailed by the common and not so common stuff of life. Then there's also the sore muscles and stiff joints, maybe a little artistic burnout. Some time away can be a really good thing, a chance to recharge the batteries and give those sore muscles some well-deserved R&R. But what's the best way to return? Well, this furniture fabler always loves to go and find the least fussy friend she can out in her workshop, and then just dive right back into the deep end of the pool, ready to give it all she's got. Hoping that she remembers how to do this. I think cleaning is first. Yeah, that sounds right. Ah, here's my unfussy friend now. This is a vintage trestle-based style writing desk, probably made between the 1950s and the 1970s. It was very unwanted. I picked it up for free. You can see here it's trestle base with that bar and peg construction. It is chunky and curvy, very folksy. I couldn't find a maker's mark, but it seemed fairly well made, and aside from its main surface being very, very scratched, it was in pretty good condition. And so, happy to be back in my workshop, I began. I started by taking out those drawers and emptying the desk of its contents. Someone's receipt for something. And then I decided to go ahead and disassemble the desk by unscrewing those main 4 bolts. And then I removed that crossbar from the legs. So here you can see all the parts that make up our whole desk. And you can see that it is all made of this, what appears to be solid pine with a very, very dark stain. Okay, yay! Finally, time to clean. I grabbed some Sponge Daddies and my Simple Green degreasing cleaner and gave everything a good spray. Oops, looks like I forgot to take off that very traditional hardware. I was pretty certain that I was going to want to replace these pieces of hardware, but I always set the originals aside just in case. After a good scrubbing, everything got a very thorough rinse, and then the desk and the dogs enjoyed a nice nap in the spring sunshine. I started to sand back the old, very dark stain on the crossbar. This desk reminded me of Scandinavian folk art tables and desks, and so I decided I wanted to try and create something inspired by their rustic mix of painted and unpainted elements. Those pieces can be simple or ornate, or kind of a blend of both. I wasn't sure exactly where I wanted to land, but I knew this extremely dark stain had to go. All of the solid wood on this desk was rustic and imperfect. None of the edges were perfectly straight or sharp or clean, and that was actually part of its charm, and also what makes a piece like this so much fun to work with. Nothing about this piece is precious or delicate. So here you can see I've switched to a foam abrasive, and that's going to allow me to remove the stain along the edges of the bar's end piece. For the top of the writing surface, I switched over to my orbital sander. Oops, gotta go turn that vacuum on. There we go. And with that, I was able to remove all of that old dark stain, as well as buff out all of the major scratches and dings. And again, that foam abrasive was so useful for these rustic corners and edges. While I was sanding down one of the little drawer's fronts, I discovered that one of the sides was cracked. Yep. Oop, there it is. Yeah. No worries, we can fix that, no problem. I grabbed my craft syringes and some wood glue, not sharp at all if you're worried about needles. And using them, I was able to get that glue deep down into that cracked side piece. Not the cleanest job I've ever done, but I got that glue down there, and then I wiped up the excess glue and just set that piece aside to dry. Then I used my carbide scraper to help me get into those edges and clean out that old stain where that second tiered shelf piece was sitting on top of the main desk top. And I used my sander again, my 3x4, to clean up those edges as well. And then I took the sander around to the back of the desk and I removed that old stain from that back lip. Then I taped off my freshly sanded desktop and I got out my base color. This is Giverny, I believe is how you pronounce it, by Annie Sloan chalk paint. I decided to use an oval brush that I sprayed every so often with some water, and I covered the legs with this beautiful blue. You can see I'm not worrying at all about smooth, perfect brush strokes. I'm letting my brush go in all directions. When you have a more rustic or imperfect piece, this approach can be the best way to really marry the paint to the existing finish. I did 2 coats on those trestle legs, and then I started painting my second tier on the desktop. You can see that I have not sanded all the way under the shelf, and that's of course because I cannot fit my sander or really even my hand under there the whole way. So I decided instead to make a clean line with my painter's tape and use a long flat paintbrush to paint those hard to reach spots. So that's going to be blue under there. Okay, we have another repair to do. One of the larger desk drawer fronts had a broken corner, a very common problem with furniture. And so I grabbed my amazing mold putty. This stuff is so great. To make a mold, all you need to do is take equal parts of the yellow and the gray putty, and then you just mix them together until they are a uniform light yellow color. Once I had my yellow molding material, I applied it to that bottom healthy corner of the other drawer, and I let that sit for about 30 minutes. While that was drying, I glued our little drawer back together, and I clamped it and set that aside so it could all dry together. So here's our corner mold. Oh, looks pretty good. Okay, so now I'm going to do a dry fit. We'll put that on the wounded corner. And yep, it looks like it's fitting pretty well. I think this is going to work. Okay, so then it is time to get out the Bondo, friends. If you've seen other fables, you know I work with this material a lot. It is a super hard wood filler, and so it's ideal for a tricky fix like building up a corner on a drawer front. Once I had it mixed up, that red cream is the hardener, and so once you add it, you just have a few minutes to work. I filled my corner mold, making sure that the Bondo was all the way down into it, but then also coming back and kind of scraping out the excess. And now I'm just going to push it onto my drawer corner, still getting a little excess squeezing out there. It's good if you can wipe that away, otherwise you'll just end up having to sand that off. And then I made a little painter's tape sling to kind of hold that repair in place as it dried. Not the most beautiful sling, but hey, it'll work. Okay, let's see how we did. After about a half an hour, I came back and I pried off that mold, and hey, all right. Looking pretty good. After some careful cleanup sanding, this drawer once again had a corner that it could be proud of. Yay! While I had my sander out, I went ahead and I scuffed off the dark stain from my two little pegs as well. And then I did this. Oh boy. Okay, what in the world am I up to here? Well, I had a design element that I really wanted to add in to my little folk art desk, and I really decided I wanted to add some of that element to this little curved piece on the face of the desk. This design element I thought would probably be at its best if it was sitting over a white surface. And so I gave this little curved piece a single coat of some white paint that I had on hand. And then I did the same thing to the two larger drawer fronts. While those guys dried, I went ahead and I tilted my desktop back, and I made sure that I had all of those bottom edges painted with the Giverny, and then I cleaned up my top tier with a little artist brush, and I removed my painter's tape. I did some touch-ups in the corners that are under that second tier, and then I sanded off any little blue smudges that had gotten on that raw wood and made sure everything was completely dust-free and ready for some stain. This is a great stain and finishing oil all in one, which is fabulous. It means it's just a single step product. And I just really have enjoyed using it. This one is in a shade called Warm Pine, and it's by Fusion Mineral Paint. And I think it's going to give our little pine desk top some beautiful, rich color without being too dark. I have a theory that those ultra dark stains were popular over pine because they are about the color of a dark pine knot. And so therefore they kind of disguise the fact that the desk is made out of pine, maybe trying to give it the look of a more fancy wood like oak or mahogany or something like that. But I really think that's kind of too bad. Pine is really one of the unsung heroes of the furniture world, in my opinion. And for a rustic folk art inspired piece such as this one, I think it lends a down-to-earth sincerity that is actually quite pleasing. So let's go ahead and celebrate those pine knots. Knots. I went ahead and applied the stain with an older paintbrush that had a nice kind of clean, sharp edge, and that really allowed me to paint the stain right up to my chalk paint edges and really control the application. After about 20 minutes, I wiped back the desktop, and then I added that same stain to the crossbar and the small drawer fronts as well, and also the two little pegs, and then wiped all of them back. Oh, looky here. Clearly, somebody went on a shopping spree while on her break and bought all kinds of decorative goodies. Ooh, I cannot wait to play with all of these gorgeous materials. And I think for this project, I'm going to use this one. This is Tangerine Spring Decoupage paper. The colors are so gorgeous, and it is so strong and high quality. You can just tell this is a great paper. And you can see why I chose to paint the parts I want to cover with this paper. You don't have to do that, but it will make the paper's colors appear more clear than if it were over wood or if it were over the painted blue. Oh, this is going to be such a great accent. Okay, so I am going to use some soft gel adhesive in a matte finish. This is not the specific brand recommended, but I had it on hand, so I'm just going to go for it. And I've got some saran wrap and some scissors for cutting. I cut a piece of the Tangerine Spring to go over my first drawer front, and then I applied a good amount of the gel adhesive, making sure that I got it all along the corners and the edges of that drawer front. I placed my paper down and then smoothed it out and added a little bit more adhesive under the edges there. It definitely didn't really want to curve because it's quite thick, but it did eventually. And then I added glue all over the top. You really want to make sure that you have that adhesive under the paper as well as over the top of the paper. And I really used my brush and my fingers to help smooth down the tissue over those curved edges and to and to also pinch the extra together at those corners. Don't worry, I'm gonna take care of those too. Then I used the saran wrap kind of balled up to help smooth out any little wrinkles or lines or air bubbles that were left. You can see here as I do the second drawer front that I wasn't happy with the placement. And so I actually went ahead and I lifted that piece of paper up and I just refreshed the glue a little bit and then replaced it back down. And you can absolutely do that when you're decoupaging, just as long as the glue hasn't really had the chance to dry. If you can get to it quickly, you can reposition if you need to. Once the drawer front papers had dried, I snipped those little corners, and then I came back in with some extra glue and just kind of smoothed them down again. And then I used some sandpaper to just clean up that inside edge. Okay, time to make a little pattern piece for our desk face embellishment. I used a piece of parchment paper just to kind of trace that shape there. And then once I had that cut out, I used it to trace out the shape onto the Tangerine spring paper. And then I just used that same gluing method, applying the glue carefully with my paintbrush and then smoothing on that piece of paper and then adding that top layer of adhesive. So what are we going to do with this very flat, very one-note blue? I grabbed a spray bottle and a much darker shade of blue and quickly made a very simple 50-50 paint wash. I decided to try out a spray and dab technique, thinking I may like more of a dappled or speckled finish. But as I played with the paint, spraying and dabbing, and even mixing in some of the lighter blue again, I decided I actually really preferred blending in the paint with my rag that I was using. This is just a basic lint-free rag, and it really helped me to kind of create a soft, naturally blended effect. I decided to put the top back on the legs just so I could really get a sense of the piece as a whole in terms of balance. And then I continued with my wipe wash technique, which is what I was kind of calling it in my head. Wipe wash. Doesn't sound very good when you say it out loud. But this technique, of course, also really helped me to achieve the perfect level of distressing that I was also wanting to get. Sometimes we refer to this as wet distressing, right? So instead of sanding off a little bit of paint in the corners, the action of wiping on the darker blue paint wash was also wiping off some of the original Giverny blue along the edges and corners, giving us a very light, very soft distressing. neat thing about applying the wash like this, as opposed to, say, with a brush, is that it was giving me a very soft and also attractively uneven effect, if that makes any sense. A dark blue wash over a brighter blue color can create what I call a color glow. Our eyes catch the lighter color peeking through a bit more here and there. And the net effect is that we perceive, even with a cooler color like blue, like this one, it seems to be sort of glowing with a kind of warmth. It's a really neat effect. I did use a brush to get into the corners that I couldn't with the rag, and I continued along the back of the desk as well. Time to remove the tape and get those little side framing pieces with my wash. And then I just kind of continued blending and blending, mostly adding in more dark wash, occasionally adding a little bit of the lighter paint again, and just kind of kept going and going until I was happy with it. Okay, time to actually secure the desk into place. Gotta find those, get those holes to line up. There we go. Yay. Phew. And give all the painted areas some more richness and protection with some clear wax. You can see I buff it in with my brush, and then I wipe back any excess with a lint-free cloth. I added some orange scented wax to the inside of all of the drawers. Ooh, it's going to smell so good, and they just look so nice when you kind of give them a little moisture. There it is. Yay. Oh, so happy. And then I grabbed a couple of cup pulls whose mounts miraculously matched those old hardware holes, and I gave them a couple coats of ivory paint. Once they dried, I decided to give them a little bit of sanding to expose a bit of their metal. I've actually never done distressed handles like this before, and I'm kind of curious to hear what you all think. Finally, I fired up the Furniture Fables by Andy Brander. Woohoo! And I marked the inside of the desk. I let it cool for a bit, and then I actually gave it a quick sanding. One of you gave me this tip. Thank you so much. It really helped the mark to be more clear. And I hit it with a little bit of that stain and finishing oil as well. Pretty nice. Okay, do you remember our dark, dinged, and dated desk? Rich with possibilities that were getting lost in its all too somber stain? Well, here she is now. Wow, I think this little folk hero has got a lot more adventures ahead. With her fresh blend of paint and stain, our little desk's charming curves come to life with a sense of unpretentious happiness. those pine elements smile warmly at us, inviting us to take a seat and write someone we love a letter or two. But perhaps most fun of all, our stout little superstars' stunning accent paper just simply sparkles with all kinds of joy. Our sweet folk art inspired desk seems almost fit for a queen. So what did my folksy princess cost me? Well, I used about $15 worth of blue paint. That beautiful piece of decoupage paper, Tangerine Spring, was $10. I only used about half of it, but I'll throw in that entire cost for this project. I kind of lucked out with the pulls, those beautiful, big, oversized floral ceramic pulls for the top tier. They just came from a previous project, so they were recycled and therefore free to me. And those two little cup pulls were probably about $3 each. So I'm gonna say $7 for the hardware. And then I'll throw in another $30 for some sanding pads, Bondo, wax, spray paint, soap, etc., bringing my total out-of-pocket cost to $62. So what will I list this little desk for? Well, given the fact that it is solid wood and my out-of-pocket cost plus the time that I spent working on it, I think that a list price of $375 seems about right. So what did you think? Did you like that dark blue paint wash over the brighter blue? How about that paper? Did you like those oversized pulls on that top tier? How about those distressed cup pulls? Is that your thing, or would you go back and spray them and make them crisp and clean? It is so wonderful to be back here on YouTube after my little hiatus. I hope you are all well. I have missed you terribly. I can't wait to hear what you thought about this project. If you enjoyed this fable, please make sure to give me a thumbs up, and I will see you all next time for more Furniture Fables.